When you hear about Nepal today, the headlines often speak of turmoil, street protests, political uncertainty, and the daily struggles of a developing nation. For many, the image of Nepal is one of hardship and instability. But here's the surprise. Beyond the chaos, this small Himalayan nation hides wonders that defy imagination. Did you know Nepal is home to 8 of the world's 10 tallest peaks, including Everest? That it's the only country with a flag that isn't rectangular? Or that here, time itself runs 15 minutes out of sync with the rest of the world? In this video, we'll journey past the headlines to discover 12 incredible facts about Nepal. From living goddesses in Kathmandu to cliff-hanging honey hunters, from sacred cows walking freely through city streets to ghostly sky caves carved into mountainsides, Nepal is a land where myth, mystery, and reality meet. So buckle up, because what you're about to see will change the way you think about Nepal forever. Number 1. A small nation, a giant among mountains. Imagine a country smaller than the US state of New York, yet towering over the world with 8 of Earth's 10 highest peaks. This is Nepal, a landlocked nation nestled between 2 giants, India and China. At just about 147,000 square kilometers, it could easily be overlooked on the map. But in reality, Nepal is the rooftop of the world. Up to 3/4 of its surface is rugged, mountainous terrain. These aren't just hills, they're the Himalayas, home to glaciers suspended like frozen rivers, gorges carved thousands of meters deep, and ridgelines that look more like natural fortresses than simple mountains. The very shape of the land has protected Nepal for centuries. Unlike its South Asian neighbors, Nepal was never colonized. The British reached India, Tibet was pressed by China, but Nepal's geography, walls of stone, ice, and altitude shielded it from invasion. The contrast within this small territory is staggering. In a single day's journey, you can travel from regions blanketed in year-round snow, where the climate mirrors Alaska, down to sub-equatorial jungles bursting with monkeys and orchids, more reminiscent of Costa Rica. Few nations on Earth can rival this climatic variation. Temperatures can shift more than 30 degrees Celsius between morning and afternoon. One moment you need a snow jacket, the next you're walking comfortably in a t-shirt. And inside this mountain kingdom live around 30 million people, diverse, resilient, and culturally rich. Over 125 ethnic groups call Nepal home, each with distinct dress, music, rituals, and cuisine. What's remarkable is that this diversity didn't arrive through mass immigration. These groups have lived here for centuries, layered like the terraces carved into Nepal's mountainsides. More than 120 languages are spoken daily. Some groups, such as the Tamang and Limbu, even maintain their own writing systems. Language here can sound almost like nature itself. Many words are onomatopoetic, imitating the gurgle of a stream or the chirp of birds in the forest. A conversation in certain villages might sound like a duet between human voices and the environment around them. Religion adds yet another layer of uniqueness. Roughly 80% of Nepalese identify as Hindu and about 10% as Buddhist. But unlike in many parts of the world, these religions do not divide communities. Instead, they overlap seamlessly. It's common to see Hindus and Buddhists worshiping at the same temple, burning incense to both Shiva and Buddha in a single ceremony. Festivals are shared, offerings are given side by side. In Nepal, faith functions less as a wall and more as a bridge. So here is the paradox of Nepal, a tiny country by area, yet vast in altitude, culture, language, and faith. A place where geography has preserved independence, where climates change faster than ours, and where diversity exists not as tension, but as harmony. Would you have imagined that such a small nation could carry such weight on the global stage? If you believe Nepal is truly a living wonder at the heart of Asia, leave a comment with the number 1 and tell us what amazed you most. Number 2, the double triangle flag, the world's most unique symbol. Look around the world's atlas and you'll notice something striking. All national flags are rectangular or square, all of them except one. Nepal stands alone with a flag that breaks every rule, a double triangle pennant that looks more like a mountain peak than a political emblem. And that design choice is no accident. The Nepalese flag is the oldest continuously used national flag in the world. Its design is rooted in ancient Hindu and Buddhist symbolism, and unlike many countries that switched to modern rectangular standards, Nepal chose to preserve its heritage. The flag consists of two stacked triangles, tapering upward like twin Himalayan peaks. To the Nepalese eye, it mirrors their landscape, sharp ridges, snowy summits, and the jagged skyline of the world's tallest mountains. But the symbolism goes deeper. The two pennants also represent the country's two dominant faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism, living side by side for centuries. Just as we saw in the last section, where temples host both traditions together, even the national flag encodes this harmony. And then there's the color. The crimson red that fills the flag is not just bold, it's the color of the rhododendron, Nepal's national flower, which paints the mountain slopes in a sea of crimson every spring. It also signifies the bravery of Nepal's people, who defended their independence against foreign empires. Around the flag's border runs a strip of deep blue, symbolizing peace and harmony. In short, every line and shade has a meaning. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. The geometry of Nepal's flag is mathematically precise. The government of Nepal has actually published an official step-by-step geometric construction of the flag in its constitution. That means if you wanted to draw it perfectly, you'd need a compass, a ruler, and a set of detailed instructions spanning 24 steps. It's a kind of sacred geometry written into law. Few flags on Earth are this exacting. Now, what about the sun and the moon that appear on the two triangles? These aren't random icons either. They symbolize permanence, the eternal presence of Nepal, as long as the sun shines and the moon glows. They also reflect the calm and fierce qualities of the Nepalese people, cool and reflective like the moon, but also powerful and radiant like the Sunday. Think about this. During the British Raj, almost every South Asian country adopted rectangular flags influenced by European heraldry. Nepal didn't. Despite immense pressure, Nepal refused to standardize its flag, choosing instead to hold on to an identity that said, "We are different and proud of it." That decision makes the Nepalese flag not only unique, but also a powerful statement of sovereignty. Even today, this distinctive design captures attention worldwide. Tourists take photos of it everywhere on mountaintops, painted on shop walls in Kathmandu, or flying proudly above monasteries. For mountaineers who finally reach Everest Base Camp, seeing the double triangle fluttering against the snow feels like a seal of arrival, proof they've entered Nepalese territory. So, the next time you see a row of flags at the United Nations, your eyes will likely pause at the lone non-rectangle, two crimson peaks outlined in blue. It's more than fabric. It's a declaration of survival, belief, and pride stitched into geometry. Would you agree that Nepal's double triangle is not just a national flag, but a timeless symbol of independence and identity? If yes, drop the number 2 in the comments and tell us whether you think Nepal was right to keep its centuries-old flag while the rest of the world conformed. Number 3, GMT +5, 45, living out of sync with the world. Picture this. You're booking a call with someone in Nepal, you check the world clock, and you realize their time zone is not on the hour, not even on the half hour. It's 15 minutes off. Nepal's official time is GMT +5. 45, the only country in the world that chose such a precise offset. Why this unusual choice? The answer lies in national identity and geography. Nepal's leaders deliberately set their time 15 minutes ahead of neighboring India, signaling independence from its giant neighbor. It's also tied to the meridian that runs through Mount Gauri-Shankar, a Himalayan peak revered both geographically and spiritually. In other words, Nepal's clocks are aligned with its own sacred mountain rather than a colonial reference point. But the quirks of time in Nepal don't stop there. In remote mountain villages, where electronic clocks are rare, time is still measured by the Sunday. Families plan their day by watching the light slide across the ridges. When the sun touches a certain peak, it's time to milk the buffalo. When the shadows cross the fields, children know school is about to start. This means that 9 a.m. in one valley might feel like 8:30 in another, depending on how each community interprets sunrise. Travelers often find themselves confused arriving on time by their watch, but being considered late or early locally. A trekker once joked that Nepal's real time zone is GMT-ish. The borderlands add another layer of complexity. Villages near India often use Indian Standard Time for trade, while those close to Tibet may follow Beijing time, which runs nearly 2 hours ahead. Imagine a single road where shops on one side open according to Indian clocks, while those across the river follow Nepalese or Chinese time. Even locals admit they sometimes double-check to avoid showing up at the wrong hour. For health workers, this fluidity of time has practical challenges. In remote clinics, vaccination days might be announced according to village time set by the headman rather than a wristwatch. A notice might read, "After the sun clears the ridge," which could mean anywhere between 9 and 10:30 a.m., depending on the season. For aid organizations, coordinating these schedules can feel like trying to catch a moving target, and yet, this out-of-sync rhythm is part of what makes Nepal distinctive. It reflects a culture less obsessed with exact punctuality and more in tune with natural cycles. In a world where the clock dictates every second, Nepal reminds us that time can be something lived, not just measured. For tourists, of course, it can be both amusing and frustrating. You might book a bus for 7 a.m. only to find it leaves at Nepali time sometime after 7:30, maybe 8, maybe later. But locals will smile and tell you, "Relax, you're on Nepali time now." So here's the question. Would you dare to live in a country where your watch doesn't matter and the sun decides your schedule? If you find Nepal's 15-minute quirk fascinating, drop the number 3 in the comments and tell us if you'd enjoy life out of sync with the rest of the world. Number 4, Nepalese women. Strong in the highlands, yet living with contradictions. When you picture women of the Himalayas, what comes to mind? Perhaps delicate Tibetan features or the glamorous image of Bollywood heroines? But the women of Nepal carry a different kind of beauty, less polished, more enduring. High cheekbones kissed by the mountain sun, honey brown skin hardened yet radiant, and eyes that hold both kindness and resilience. Their presence is as unforgettable as the landscapes they inhabit. In the highlands, it is common to see young women carrying bundles of firewood or baskets of potatoes strapped to their backs with a traditional headband. Their bodies are bent under the weight, but their faces are lit with warm smiles. To outsiders, it can be a shock. How can someone carry such burdens and still look so radiant? But for Nepalese women, this is daily life, a rhythm passed down for generations. And yet, behind this image of quiet strength lies a complex story of tradition, progress, and contradiction. Nepal is still a deeply patriarchal society, where rural women often shoulder both household and farming responsibilities. But in recent decades, change has begun to reshape their roles. According to the United Nations, women now hold more than 29% of seats in Nepal's parliament, the highest proportion in South Asia. For comparison, that number is just 14% in India and 20% in Bangladesh. Beyond politics, women are emerging as entrepreneurs, mountaineers, and activists. In 1993, Pasang Lamu Sherpa became the first Nepalese woman to summit Mount Everest, an achievement that inspired a new generation. Today, you can find female trekking guides leading expeditions across the Annapurna circuit, female pilots flying domestic planes, and women's cooperatives running successful tea farms in eastern Nepal. But progress coexists with heavy tradition. In rural western districts, some women are still subjected to shaupati, the practice of banishing them to huts during menstruation deemed impure. Despite being outlawed in 2017, the custom lingers in certain villages. It is this tension between modern equality and ancient restrictions that defines much of Nepalese women's experience today. When it comes to love and marriage, Nepalese women are often described as both gentle and fiercely loyal. Many say they fall in love slowly, with caution, but once committed, their devotion runs deep. Betrayal, however, is taken seriously. Loyalty is expected to be mutual. In urban areas like Kathmandu or Pokhara, younger women increasingly seek partners who respect both tradition and independence. Some have embraced international marriages, a trend that has tripled in the past decade thanks to social media and global mobility. Still, contradictions persist. A woman may study law in the city, only to return home and be expected to cook and serve guests while her brothers relax. A bride may wear jeans at her university graduation, but still be married off in a red sari through an arranged match. The line between modern and traditional shifts constantly, depending on family, class, and geography. And perhaps that is the essence of Nepalese women, the ability to balance worlds. To climb mountains while still bowing before ancestors, to demand rights while respecting tradition, to carry the load of firewood and still radiate joy. So, here's the question. Do you see this blend of resilience and contradiction as a challenge, or as a unique form of beauty? If you believe Nepalese women embody a strength worth celebrating, drop the number 4 in the comments and tell us what inspires you most about them. Number 5. Men with multiple wives, women with multiple husbands. In most of the modern world, monogamy one man, one woman is considered the default. But deep in the highlands of Nepal, far from the bustle of Kathmandu, marriage traditions have evolved under very different pressures. Here, survival often comes before romance, and the result is a social system that may surprise you. Both men and women can have multiple spouses. Take the Humla district in northwestern Nepal. Life here is harsh. Villages are scattered across steep ridges, the soil is rocky, and winters are long and unforgiving. In such conditions, families depend on every pair of hands to secure food, tend livestock, and protect land from being divided. So instead of a romantic ideal, marriage becomes a practical arrangement. For men, polygyny, having more than one wife, can mean more help in the fields, more children to carry on the lineage, and stronger family alliances. But equally striking is the practice of polyandry, where one woman may have 2 or even 3 husbands, often brothers. To an outsider, it may sound unconventional, but in these villages, it prevents land from splitting into tiny, unusable plots. By marrying the same woman, brothers keep their inheritance intact under one household. The rituals themselves reflect this pragmatic outlook. Instead of gold, jewelry, or diamond rings, wedding offerings might be sacks of grain, a cow, or a few goats. In some places, a young man earns the right to marry simply by agreeing to plow the bride's family fields for several seasons. It's not about romance in the Hollywood sense, it's about ensuring survival in a hostile environment. There's also a tradition of levirate marriage. If a man dies young, his widow may be expected to marry his brother. This prevents outsiders from taking over the family's land and ensures the children remain within the household. From a Western perspective, this might feel restrictive, but for villagers, it is a way of protecting stability. Still, change is creeping in. With younger generations exposed to television, smartphones, and social media, romantic love is starting to compete with tradition. Some young people now resist arranged matches, seeking partners from outside their villages or even outside the country. Government programs and education campaigns also encourage monogamy as a step toward gender equality, yet the old ways have not disappeared. In some remote valleys, it is still possible to meet families where one wife shares daily life with 2 or 3 husbands. They raise children together, share work, and present themselves as a united household. For them, it is not scandal, but survival. So here's the paradox. While urban Nepal is moving quickly toward modern ideals of individual love and choice, parts of rural Nepal still practice systems rooted in ancient necessity. It's a reminder that in a country as geographically diverse as Nepal, marriage itself can take many forms. Would you be able to live in a society where love bends to the laws of survival? If you find these marriage customs as fascinating as they are unexpected, leave a comment with the number 5 and tell us whether you think such traditions should be preserved or left behind. Number 6, the Kumari, Nepal's living goddess. In the heart of bustling Kathmandu, where motorcycles weave between temples and street vendors call out in a dozen languages, there is a palace where time seems to stand still. Behind its carved wooden windows lives a child who is not treated as ordinary flesh and blood, but as divine. She is the Kumari, the living goddess of Nepal. The tradition dates back centuries, rooted in both Hindu and Buddhist belief. According to legend, the goddess Talehu once visited Nepal's kings in human form, but when she felt dishonored, she vanished, vowing only to return in the body of a pure young girl. Since then, every generation has chosen one child to serve as Kumari, believed to be the living incarnation of the goddess herself. The selection process is almost mystical. Candidates must be from the newer Shakya caste, and they undergo a series of tests that blend religion, astrology, and ritual. Their horoscope must align with the king's. They must show no scars or blemishes, and in one famous test, little girls are placed in a dark room filled with terrifying masks and animal sacrifices. The one who shows no fear is believed to carry the goddess's spirit. Once chosen, the Kumari moves into the Kumari Gar, an ornate palace in Kathmandu's Durbar Square. From that moment, her life changes completely. She does not attend school like other children. She rarely sees her friends or family. Most striking of all, her bare feet may never touch the ground. The earth is considered profane. If the Kumari's feet touch it, her divine essence is said to leave her instantly. Public appearances are rare, reserved for major festivals like Indra Jatra. When she does appear, she is carried in a gilded palanquin through the streets as thousands bow their heads, believing they are in the presence of a living goddess. Her calm, painted face looks out over the crowds, and even the king of Nepal once bowed before her. But the role is as fragile as it is exalted. A single drop of blood, a cut, a scraped knee, even the loss of a tooth means the goddess has departed. When that happens, the Kumari is immediately retired and another girl is chosen. Some Kumaris have served for years, others only for months, and when their time is over, they must return to ordinary life. This return, however, is not always easy. Many former Kumaris describe feeling isolated or unprepared after years of seclusion. Some men are reluctant to marry them, believing that once divine, they can never be truly ordinary again. Psychologists have even raised questions about the emotional impact of this ancient practice on a child. Yet, for many Nepalese, the Kumari remains a sacred and cherished tradition. Tourists gather outside the palace in Kathmandu, hoping to catch a brief glimpse of her at the window, a fleeting look at a centuries-old mystery that continues into the modern age. So here's the question. In a country balancing tradition and progress, should Nepal continue the Kumari system? Or should little girls be allowed to live ordinary childhoods? If you find the idea of a living goddess as fascinating as it is controversial, leave a comment with the number 6 and tell us what you think. Number 7, child tulkus, the youngest living Buddhas. In most parts of the world, childhood means schoolyards, picture books, and carefree play. But in the remote monasteries of Nepal, some children grow up under very different expectations. Here, a boy as young as 3 may be recognized as a tulku, a reincarnated lama, believed to carry the soul and wisdom of a departed master. The process begins when a high-ranking lama passes away. Senior monks gather, searching for signs that will lead them to the child who carries his spirit. They consult oracles, interpret dreams, and sometimes even test young boys with objects, placing several items before them, only one of which belonged to the late lama. If the boy instinctively chooses the correct one, it is taken as evidence of reincarnation. Once identified, the child is taken into the monastery and raised not as an ordinary novice, but as the living continuation of his predecessor. Imagine a toddler barely able to recite the alphabet being treated with the reverence of a great teacher. Villagers bow their heads, press their palms together, and offer gifts, believing they are in the presence of a bodhisattva. Daily life for these young tulkus is both tender and demanding. They wear saffron robes, rise before dawn to chant, and sit through hours of meditation. At times, you can still see their childlike side sneaking sweets, chasing a puppy, or blinking curiously at tourists with cameras. But alongside that innocence lies a heavy responsibility to carry on the teachings of their past life. For their families, sending a son to the monastery can be a great honor. It is believed to bring spiritual merit for the entire household. In poor highland villages, it can also be a practical choice, ensuring the child is cared for and educated. Yet it is not without sacrifice. Parents may see their son only on rare visits, knowing he now belongs to a spiritual community larger than the family itself. The reverence shown to these children can appear almost surreal. A boy barely 5 years old may receive visitors who kneel before him, asking for blessings. He might still be learning to write his name, yet villagers believe he carries wisdom older than their own lifetimes. At the same time, modern Nepal grapples with questions about this ancient practice. Some critics worry about the psychological pressure on a child raised as divine. Others point out the risk of removing children too early from normal education and family life. Still, For many Buddhists, the tradition of recognizing tulkus is central to their faith, a living link between generations of teachers. To witness a tulku procession is to see the blend of innocence and reverence. A tiny figure with shaved head and crimson robe walks slowly through a village, perhaps sucking on a lollipop, while elders bow deeply, treating him as if he were centuries old. It is a sight at once endearing, humbling, and deeply thought-provoking. So what do you think? Should children be revered as spiritual masters, or should childhood remain a time of freedom and play? If you find Nepal's tulku tradition as intriguing as it is complex, drop the number 7 in the comments and tell us whether you'd want to meet one of these youngest living Buddhas. Number 8. The Sherpas. True superhumans of the Himalayas high in the Solukhumbu region of Nepal, where icy winds slice through the valleys and oxygen levels drop dangerously low, lives a community unlike any other, the Sherpas. To outsiders, they are known as porters or mountain guides. But to those who truly understand their role, the Sherpas are the backbone of Himalayan exploration superhumans shaped by altitude and survival. Science has proven what climbers have long observed. Centuries of life above 3,000 meters have left Sherpas with genetic adaptations that make them uniquely suited to extreme altitudes. Their lungs process oxygen more efficiently, their blood carries it faster. Their hearts beat slower even in the thin air where others gasp and collapse. For most people, reaching 80 meters, the so-called death zone, is a life-threatening ordeal. For Sherpas, it is part of their workplace. Imagine this. While tourists strap on oxygen tanks, stumble in heavy boots, and pause every few steps to catch their breath, Sherpas climb calmly beside them, carrying loads of 50, 70, even 100 kilograms. They haul tents, food, ropes, ladders, and yes, even the oxygen tanks that keep foreign climbers alive. Without them, the dream of summiting Mount Everest would remain impossible for most. But being a Sherpa is not just about physical ability, it is about spirit. They are renowned for their patience, humility, and loyalty. Climbers often recall moments when Sherpas risked their own lives to rescue stranded mountaineers. One Sherpa, Kami Rita, has summited Everest a record-breaking 28 times, a feat beyond imagination for most athletes. Yet, when interviewed, he simply said, "It is my job. I was born here." Still, this superhuman strength comes with sacrifice. Sherpa communities have paid a heavy price for their role in global mountaineering. Avalanches, sudden storms, and falling ice have claimed countless lives. In 2014, an avalanche on Everest killed 16 Sherpas in a single morning, shaking the climbing world. For the families left behind, the cost of carrying the dreams of others is unbearably high. Despite the risks, guiding remains one of the most reliable sources of income in the region. A successful Everest season can earn a Sherpa more than a year's wages in the lowlands. That money builds schools, repairs monasteries, and sends children to universities abroad. For many families, the choice is not about adventure, it is about survival and opportunity. And beyond Everest, Sherpas embody a cultural richness. They are devout Buddhists, their villages dotted with prayer flags, mani stones, and monasteries where monks chant blessings before every climbing season. To them, mountains are sacred, not simply peaks to be conquered, but deities to be respected. Before leading expeditions, Sherpas perform rituals asking the gods of the mountains for safe passage. So the next time you hear about a record-breaking climb in the Himalayas, remember the Sherpas. They are not just guides. They are the invisible strength behind every step taken by those who dream of touching the roof of the world. Would you trust your life to someone who carries your oxygen while breathing calmly in the death zone? If you believe the Sherpas are the unsung heroes of mountaineering, drop the number 8 in the comments and tell us whether you dare follow them into the clouds. Number 9, the world's most dangerous landing strip. For most adventurers, the journey to Everest Base Camp doesn't begin with boots on a trail. It begins with white knuckles gripping an airplane seat. That's because the gateway to the world's tallest mountain is Lukla Airport, officially named Tenzing Hillary Airport after the first men to summit Everest. Perched at nearly 850 meters above sea level, this tiny airstrip has earned a reputation as the most dangerous airport in the world. The runway itself looks more like a paved driveway than an international hub. It stretches just 527 meters, barely 1/10 the length of a standard runway. To make matters worse, it tilts upward at a steep 12% gradient, sloping toward a wall of rock. Land too low, and you slam into the cliff. Overshoot, and there is no second chance, only a drop into a yawning valley. Pilots here must operate like aviation ninjas. There is no autopilot, no radar guidance, and no room for error. They rely on instinct, experience, and nerves of steel. Approaches are made by weaving through narrow valleys, sometimes with mountain ridges so close that passengers can spot prayer flags fluttering on hilltop shrines. On windy days, the plane rocks violently, and many first-time travelers admit whispering prayers under their breath. And then there's the weather. The Himalayas are notorious for sudden shifts. A clear sky can vanish into heavy fog in minutes. Storms roll in without warning, forcing pilots to make split-second decisions, attempt a landing, or circle back to Kathmandu. Delays are common, and cancellations can stretch for days, stranding trekkers on either end of the journey. For the Sherpa people of Lukla, however, this is routine. Children play within earshot of the runway. Locals sip tea in small cafes as planes roar overhead. They've learned to live with the risk, knowing this precarious strip of asphalt is their lifeline connecting remote villages to the outside world, bringing supplies, medicine, and tourists whose dollars fuel the local economy. There have been tragedies. Accidents at Lukla have claimed both lives and aircraft. In 2008, a Yeti Airlines plane overshot the runway, killing 18 passengers. In 2019, a small aircraft veered off the tarmac during takeoff, striking parked helicopters and leaving 3 dead. These sobering events remind everyone, pilots, passengers, and locals alike, that flying into Lukla is never routine. Yet thousands still make the journey each year, drawn by the call of Everest. For many, the first glimpse of the tiny airstrip carved into the mountainside is as unforgettable as the summit itself. Surviving the landing feels like the true beginning of the adventure. Tourists often say the scariest part of trekking to Everest is not the glaciers, the altitude, or the cold, but the 30-minute flight to Lukla. And perhaps that's fitting. To step into the Himalayas, you must first face your own fear at the edge of the world. So, would you dare to board a plane bound for Lukla, knowing every second of the landing is a test of skill and fate? If you think you'd brave the runway of steel nerve pilots, drop the number 9 in the comments and tell us whether this is a flight you'd take or avoid. Number 10, Kathmandu, a living, inhabited museum. At first glance, Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, might look like a chaotic South Asian city, honking motorbikes, tangled wires, and crowded marketplaces. But take a closer look, and you'll see something few capitals on Earth can match. Kathmandu is not just a city, it is a living, breathing museum where centuries of history still shape the rhythm of daily life. The Kathmandu Valley, a bowl-shaped expanse ringed by mountains, spans less than 30 kilometers. And yet within this compact space lie 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Imagine that. More sacred and historic monuments packed into a small valley than many countries hold in their entirety. Durbar squares, the royal plazas of Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, and Patan are filled with intricately carved palaces and pagoda-style temples. Here, the past is not roped off behind velvet barriers. Children play football in courtyards built 5 centuries ago. Shopkeepers sell tea beneath wooden balconies dating to the 1600s. Couples exchange wedding vows under the shadow of temples older than most nations. The sacred and the ordinary coexist seamlessly. Perhaps nowhere is this clearer than in the rooftop shrines. In Kathmandu, religion is not confined to monasteries. Small altars rise from the corners of family homes, where incense burns in the morning and by afternoon. The same rooftop might be used to dry laundry or spread rice in the Sunday. It is faith made practical, spirituality woven into daily chores. But Kathmandu is not frozen in time. It is also a city that has endured hardship and renewal. In April 2015, a massive earthquake struck Nepal, devastating parts of the valley. Temples collapsed. Historic towers crumbled, and lives were lost. For a moment, it seemed Kathmandu's heritage might be gone forever. Yet within days, locals gathered in the squares, determined to rebuild. Today, restoration continues stone by stone, beam by beam, showing the resilience of a city that refuses to let history vanish. The city also thrives as a crossroads of culture. Wander through the narrow alleys of Thamel, and you'll find a blend of old and new. Buddhist monks brushing past backpackers, artisans hammering copper bowls beside neon trekking shops, and the aroma of incense mingling with sizzling momo dumplings. Kathmandu is at once sacred and commercial, ancient and modern, global yet distinctly Nepalese. Everywhere, the layers of history are visible. The white dome of Buddhanath Stupa rises like a guardian eye, surrounded by prayer flags that flap in the wind. Swayambhunath, the so-called monkey temple, gazes down from a hilltop, its golden spire glowing in the afternoon sunday. Pilgrims circumambulate, spinning prayer wheels, while tourists snap photos, two worlds moving together around the same sacred center. For visitors, the effect is unforgettable. Kathmandu is not a museum where you whisper in reverence. It is one where the exhibits are alive, where faith is practiced, food is cooked, and laughter echoes through courtyards that have seen dynasties rise and fall. So, the question is, would you enjoy living in a place where every alley tells a story and every stone holds a prayer? If you believe Kathmandu truly deserves its title as a living inhabited museum, leave a comment with the number 10 and share which part of this timeless city you'd most want to explore. Number 11, sacred cows, where killing one means prison time. In many parts of the world, cows are livestock raised for meat, milk, or leather. But in Nepal, the cow holds a far higher status. Here, it is not just an animal, it is a sacred being protected by both faith and law. To harm a cow is to invite not only social outrage, but also the heavy hand of justice. Killing a cow in Nepal can mean up to 12 years in prison. The reason lies deep in Hindu tradition. To Hindus, the cow is revered as the earthly embodiment of the goddess Lakshmi, bringer of wealth, fortune, and prosperity. Cows are seen as selfless providers. They give milk, butter, dung for fuel, and strength for plowing. To take their life is viewed as an offense against generosity itself. For this reason, Nepal, once the world's only Hindu kingdom, enshrined cow protection into its national identity. But it doesn't end with religion, it is cultural. During the annual festival of Gaijatra, or Cow Festival, families parade cows through the streets of Kathmandu. Their faces are painted with vermilion powder, their horns decorated with flowers, and their necks draped in garlands. The festival is more than spectacle. It is a ritual of remembrance. Families who lost a loved one in the past year join the procession, believing the cow will guide the departed soul into the afterlife. During Tihar, another major festival, cows are honored as sacred guests. Families feed them fruits, sweets, and special offerings, treating them with the same respect they would show to their ancestors. To watch a procession of brightly adorned cows walking serenely through the city is to glimpse how deeply this reverence is woven into daily life. The law reflects this devotion. Nepal's constitution explicitly names the cow as the national animal, granting it protections that few countries extend to any creature. While outsiders may find it unusual that slaughtering a cow carries a harsher penalty than many other crimes, for Nepalese society it is a natural expression of spiritual duty. Yet there is a fascinating nuance. While beef is strictly off limits, buffalo meat is widely consumed. For many Nepalese families, buffalo serves as a cultural compromise, a way to maintain protein in the diet without violating religious taboos. Walk through a local market, and you'll find stalls selling buffalo momos and curries, while cows roam freely in the streets, untouchable and unbothered. For travelers, this can be an eye-opening experience. Imagine dining at a restaurant where buffalo meat is on the menu, but the sight of a cow wandering casually past the doorway is met with respect, not annoyance. In Kathmandu, cows often stroll through busy intersections, halting traffic as drivers patiently wait. No horns, no frustration, just acceptance that the sacred has the right of way. This deep respect has shaped Nepal's national character. The cow is more than a religious symbol. It is a cultural anchor, a reminder of values centered on patience, generosity, and reverence for life. So, what do you think? Should animals be given legal protection based on spiritual beliefs? If you find Nepal's devotion to its sacred cows as intriguing as it is unique, drop the number 11 in the comments and tell us whether you'd welcome these gentle creatures roaming freely in your city. Number 12, picnicking by the pyres. Nepal's unique outlook on death. In many cultures, death is hidden away, something to be mourned privately, behind closed doors with hushed voices and solemn tears. But in Nepal, death takes on a very different face. Here, particularly in the Kathmandu Valley, cremation is not concealed. It unfolds openly along the banks of the Bagmati River as both sacred ritual and public event. Walk to Pashupatinath, one of Hinduism's holiest temples, and you will see a scene unlike anywhere else. Stone platforms line the river's edge, each one a stage for life's final ceremony. Families bring their deceased loved ones wrapped in cloth, place them on wooden pyres, and perform last rites under the watchful eyes of priests. Incense drifts into the air. The crackle of fire merges with the chanting of mantras. And just a few feet away, everyday life continues. Vendors sell tea, children play, and tourists watch quietly from the opposite bank. To Western eyes, it can feel shocking, even unsettling. Imagine eating a snack or snapping a photo while, across the river, flames rise from a funeral pyre. But for Nepalese Hindus, this is not disrespect. It is reality, and it is sacred. Death is not seen as a grim end, but as part of the eternal cycle of samsara: birth, death, and rebirth. The cremation fire releases the soul from the body, and the ashes scattered into the Bagmati, a sister river to India's Ganges, symbolize liberation from suffering. For many elderly Nepalese, the dream is to spend their final years near Pashupatinath, so that when the time comes, their bodies will be cremated on these riverbanks. To die here is to attain moksha, spiritual liberation. Families gather not in sorrow but in reverence, knowing their loved one is passing into freedom. And yet, the atmosphere is not uniformly somber. Around the cremation ghats, people sit on steps, sharing food, chatting, even laughing. For them, life and death are neighbors, not opposites. Children grow up accustomed to the sight of pyres, unafraid of what many societies treat as taboo. In Nepal, the presence of death reinforces the value of living fully, not fearing the inevitable. The symbolism runs deep. As the smoke rises from the pyres, prayer flags flutter above the river, carrying mantras into the wind. Monkeys scamper across the temple roofs. Pilgrims chant while tourists snap photos. All of it, life, death, joy, grief, woven together in one seamless fabric. This openness offers a profound lesson. In countries where death is hidden away, people often fear it. In Nepal, by living side by side with cremation fires, people learn to accept it as a natural return to the elements. Ashes flow into the river, mixing with the currents that nourish rice fields downstream. Death itself feeds life. So, what do you think? Could you picnic by the pyres, seeing death not as a tragedy, but as part of the eternal cycle? If you find Nepal's outlook on mortality both unsettling and inspiring, drop the number 12 in the comments and share whether you would find peace or discomfort in such a place.